There is some news we wanted to break, and it is a pretty interesting discovery that the Wall Street Journal has uncovered.
If you'll remember last year during the Biden administration, there was concerns about this cyber attack on the U.S. infrastructure, and that they were finding this malware that was embedded within key infrastructure centers within the United States, whether it be power, energy, things of that nature. And it was accredited to that it came from China. You know, the United States believed that the People's Republic of China and the party probably had something to do with it, but obviously they would never have admitted that publicly. But it was a big shock at the time to see some of the vulnerabilities that we had here at home that could be susceptible to some of these types of cyber attacks. Well, it turns out that the outgoing Biden administration had a secret meeting with Chinese officials at the end of last year in December. And in that meeting, the Chinese officials actually acknowledged in this summit in Geneva that the Chinese were behind it, that the government itself, not trying to just blow it off, talk about some rogue actors or some criminal elements within the country, but they actually were behind it. This is unprecedented. Normally, your adversary in this doesn't admit to this, doesn't fess up.
They may be doing it, but they're not usually talking about it.
And it was so much so that the United States had it as an agenda item to talk about. It was called Volt Typhoon, but decided to not bring it up, thinking that there's no way that they were going to even have any sort of discussion about this, because they would just deny and move on. They instead were talking about some phone hacking that also occurred that was directed by the government of China that swept up AT&T and some of the other carriers and actually involved some eavesdropping on some of the presidential campaign periphery people. But it was one of the delegation members of China that brought it up himself. And it was seen there that by many, that he was making this admission almost as if to say, if you come towards Taiwan, if you push us, look what we can do. And that, when you have that context, obviously the Biden team, they said briefed the incoming president post-election, and this was as the Biden team's exiting.
Yeah, I think we need to clarify the time frame of this, because this is a breaking news item, but this is something that happened, only a few months ago. We're talking about back in December. This happened, but it happened, you got to remember, a lot can be disrupted in that election period to inauguration period when there is an outgoing administration that is not thrilled.
Well, and we know how the world reacted to the Biden presidency. They took steps to strengthen their posture against the United States during 4 years of a weak foreign policy led by, in name, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, but Jake Sullivan, Wendy Sherman, the Victoria Nulands of the world, all of these people, Secretary Blinken, that were leading the foreign policy of the United States and took us steps back, maybe even decades back, in the posture of the United States on the world stage, causing all of this catch-up that you're having to see in this first 80 days of the Trump presidency. And so when you look at the fact that the tariff, there's a pause for the entire world except against China.
Yeah. And where they keep, since we've been, I think, on air, that happened where the pauses went through. I guess that happened a couple days ago.
Right.
The pauses went through, so a lot of people who are concerned about the tariffs, but China's sort of the big one.
But they keep going back and forth. There's up to 125% tariffs across the board on China at this point. And when you see that and you see the strength that's now having to be put forward against China, it also tells you how far the ability to negotiate and duel it out with the Chinese officials have gotten, because they were brazen enough in a meeting to admit they were behind pre-positioning software to be able to strike at the very heart of America being able to operate. That would be on civilian infrastructure. That's not just hitting a military target if they felt they needed to do an attack on the United States. That is costing many casualties and issues with the civilian population in the United States. That's telling you how serious it got, and why I think in some degree, I think maybe even the administration should be able to vocalize this to some degree of how bad the relationship has gotten, how brazen China feels. that you have to be tough now with things like a trade war, or else it becomes a hot war with actual military conflict. And I don't think anyone in the world wants to see an actual military war with China.
I definitely don't want that. I mean, you had even people like Kevin, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank saying, hey, you know what? Make it a 400% tariff. Then we'll actually get to the table and get stuff done. We've already seen so many countries come to the table. We've already seen the pause happen for 99% of the countries. It just happens to be the one that's still there is the one that is the big dog, if you will. The one that is going to be the most difficult because we probably rely on each other the most, which is China. And China, again, has not really been a friend necessarily to the United States, but is one of our biggest trade partners. So when we start going back and forth, remember, you're dealing with almost everything that you use on a daily basis is likely made in China. I'm looking at around in our studio. I am sure most of what is getting us here on the air was probably made in China or a country associated.
Well, and what you're also seeing is some of the businesses in the United States that have clout and the ability to also take part in negotiations in their own way. China, obviously, a lot of business with Walmart, America's largest retailer. Walmart is saying publicly that they are going to force the exporter, being China, who they get goods from, to be the ones to foot the bill for the tariffs.
The tariffs, yeah.
Right, because the way tariffs work, normally when it comes into the port through customs, it is the responsibility of the importer, the one who gets it, who pays the duty to be able to continue it to come into the country. Walmart has the clout because of how much they import in from Chinese manufacturers and companies that they can say, you know what? You're going to be the one that's going to foot this bill. You want to still keep sending your goods through here, and we have the power and they have the money to really put that pressure point on the person that's manufacturing it. That changes a big equation, especially for the left that tries to say this is only going to hurt lower income and middle class Americans who are going to see prices rise on all their goods. When the largest retailer in the United States that is mostly, it's not the billionaires of Wall Street that are the biggest customer base of the Walmart stores across America, if they're going to say, we're not even going to end up having to raise the price on our goods because China's going to pay it anyways. That makes a very big difference in the pressure point because now China's losing another leverage point where they can say, if we can hold out and just cause more pain on the American people, then President Trump will cave. That doesn't seem like it's going to play out for them very well. It's an interesting development when you know this context of how bad the relationship and how brazen China is in their meetings with the officials of the former administration, why it is necessary to be so tough on them now, because you have to undo a lot of damage that has happened with our posture towards China.
All right. We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Secular program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.